Hey everyone, welcome back to Gimme Growth. Excited to be here today with Pepp Laja. Pepp is one of the leading CRO experts in the industry, and he's widely known as a provocative speaker on the topic of testing and experimentation. He runs an amazing blog and conference under the name of ConversionXL, which I highly recommend following and also attending the conference. The roster of speakers is just phenomenal, and also a very active Facebook group, which I encourage everybody to join. And I'll put all those links below. And in addition to all that, he also has a very high-impact consulting business with some of the bigger, well-known brands out there. So, Pepp, I feel very lucky to have you here today. Thanks so much for joining.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Cool. Well, whenever you're ready, we can just flip over to the presentation, and then we'll ask some questions at the end, okay?
Okay, guys. Let's talk about optimization. So when it comes to optimization, what is it that we're really doing here? How does optimization relate to growth? Well, let's imagine that this is your growth curve. There's a small growth here. Something's happening, but not too much, not overly exciting. But what if you could increase your growth rate by a modest 10%? Sorry, your conversion rate. You increase your conversion rate just 10% per year. This is what your growth curve would now look like. Or what if you could increase your conversion rate just 15% per year? That's what it would look like, a dramatic shift. And keep in mind, this is while keeping all of the traffic the same, no increased ad spend, nothing, everything else is the same. And of course, you would be able to acquire customers cheaper, and so that your actual growth rate would be much higher than this. If you were around many years ago, this would be your growth rate had you studied conversion optimization in like 2009. And if you were around back then, you might be thinking, ah! Anyway, so optimization is compound interest for growth. Compound interest for growth. Well, let's imagine that you're all fired. You're fired, you don't have your startup anymore, you have to go and get a new job. And congratulations, some company hired you. You're now the optimization manager for this particular website. Now you're tasked with achieving a 20% increase in conversion optimization in 1 year. 20% increase. The question is, how would you go about it? So think specifically, if you were given a website that you've never worked on before, what would you do to increase the conversion rate? Now, as soon as you're thinking of some cosmetic stuff, oh, maybe I would change the image and add some call to action and change the headline here and there. Now you're thinking in terms of tactics, and that's wrong. You should never start with tactics. So how do most people approach optimization? Oh, they go to Google and just Google conversion optimization tactics or growth hacking tactics, and you find blog posts like this, the complete list. You don't need anything more. You can easily sort through 100 plus techniques. Awesome, great. So how do we use this 100 plus techniques? Well, how about we implement all the 100 plus techniques on our website all at once? Well, then your website will look like Link's cars. The just click and buttons and urgency and photos for building a relationship. You name it, they have it. And of course, your results would not be as good. Now, if you change 100 things at once, especially if they come from a random list, a random blog post, inevitably, some things will get better, some things will get worse, and you don't know which is which. And so implementing just 100 tactics all at once is a terrible idea. Well, what about testing? Let's test every tactic one by one, and then we'll know which one will work. Great, let's do that. Well, an average A/B test on an average website will run like 4 weeks. So that means to test 100 ideas takes 7.5 years. Do you have that kind of time? I don't think so. And also, since it's 100 ideas off of a blog post, you have no way to prioritize them. So you can't let's test the 10 most promising ideas up front and then leave them. No, you don't know which ones are the 10 most promising ideas. You have no way to prioritize. It's a terrible idea. Well, what about finding checklists like this? This is from moz.com, a reputable website. And of course, also checklist at this, they check every box and get maximum conversions. I mean, we live in the real world, and shit like that just does not work. So best practices. Well, there's a best practice for everything, right? The best homepage, the best checkout page, the best landing page. Can we just use one of those best practices to optimize our website? You can, and you should. However, you have to understand that best practice is a starting point. It's where you start, not where you end up. Best practice is your first hypothesis. Best practice is you should be at least this good. And best practice is not guaranteed to work, but you should at least, this is your best first idea when going to the market. Start with the best practice and then optimize from there. But it's not optimization. Well, what about design trends like ghost buttons? You see them everywhere. So it's a button we want people to click, but we make them less visible. Good idea, right? Or what about video backgrounds? Because every cool startup has to have a video background, right? Well, the problem is that human brain reacts to movement. So while they're looking at your video background, while they're looking at whatever is happening, they're not paying attention to your value proposition. They're not paying attention to what you really have to offer, and they're much less likely to sign up with you. So don't follow the latest design trends. Bullshit. What about copying market leaders like Amazon or whoever is the leader in your industry? Amazon is doing all right. The conversion rate for Amazon Prime subscribers is 74%. 74% of people who come buy something. What's your conversion rate? Maybe 5%. 5% is good. But Amazon is then 15 times better. So is it that their design is 15 times better than your design? Is their copy 15 times better than your copy? No. So if you just copy your market leader's design and their sales copy and expect that you'll get their results, it's naive thinking. The world doesn't work like that. And certainly don't copy your competitors, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing either. They copied it from somebody else, who copied it from somebody else, who copied it from somebody else. It's blind leading the blind. You say, hey, they must have tested this. No, they probably didn't. So don't overestimate how smart your competitors are. And certainly benchmarking and comparing yourself with the competition is not the optimization. So how do you optimize? Well, you need a process. William Deming, who was the father of the modern industrial revolution, he got the Japanese electronics industry and car industry going in the 60s. And he said, if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. So optimization is a process. You have to be able to describe it like this. And so how do we optimize our process for optimization, our optimization program? Well, the most important thing to know is that the key to optimization is the discovery of what matters. We need to really know what parts of our website actually help conversions, increase our conversions, and which parts or which blocks of our content on various pages do nothing or even harm conversion. So think about your home page. You have some copy and your different content blocks in some order. Why are they in the particular order they're in? Is it random? Well, I hope not. Nothing should be random and by chance. You should know the impact of every single element on your website. And also, when it comes to target audience, do you know what matters the most to them when they're shopping for whatever you're selling? What is their number one decision-making criteria, number 2, 3, 4? How are they making decisions? Who else are they talking to? How are they? What are they thinking when they see your offer? What are their doubts and hesitations? Do you know? If no, then how can you optimize? So figuring this stuff out is what is the biggest part of optimization. So you need to understand what are the problems with your existing website, with your existing value proposition, and where in your business model, where in your website are the problems, and why those problems are problems. And we can figure this out 2 ways. Number 1 is testing. But if we start with testing, we have the same problem as we had with the list of 100 growth hacks. Like, we have no way to prioritize. We don't know. So we always have to start with research. Now, when we do research, we need to gather what? We need to gather a lot of data. But you don't want to be this douchebag here, because you don't need just any data. You need the right kind of data. You need data that you can actually look at and make decisions when you analyze the data. So it needs to be actionable data. And most of the people are, hey, well, let's log into Google Analytics and see what the data says. Well, data doesn't tell you shit. Data is just there. Data is passive. So, and also a lot of people are like, ooh, I have so much data and all kinds of stuff, but what to do with it, I don't know. It's overwhelming. Oh, of course it's overwhelming if you're doing the analytics part backwards. So the way it actually works is to start by asking the right questions. Questions about your business. Questions about your business assumptions, about your audience. It might be this list of questions. And it's also very contextual, depends on the specific business you're in. But the important thing is that you should have to start by making a massive list of questions, hundreds and hundreds of questions about everything you have on your website. And then once you have a list of 100 questions, now you ask yourself, what kind of data should I gather that helps me answer this particular question? Now, once you know what kind of data you need, you can go out there, gather that data, and now every piece of data that you have, you actually know why the data is there. It's to answer these questions. And suddenly, hooray, you don't have analysis paralysis. You know exactly what to do with the data. But of course, if you torture data long enough, it'll confess to anything. So you have to be very careful with your interpretations. Because if we all like our opinions, we all have egos. So if you want data to prove an idea that you're really fond of, you can do that. Segmentation and all kinds of stuff, and ignoring sample sizes, and it's possible. So it's important to have more than one person to look at the data, so somebody can call you bullshit and not lead you astray. So in order to gather all the data that is not, too much data is overwhelming, it takes too much time, and too little data is not useful. So there's a solid middle ground. And this is ConversionXL framework that I've developed, used over the years highly successfully with my clients to optimize their websites. So essentially it's about gathering 6 types of data inputs, and those inputs feed into central pool of insights that then we can use to optimize our website. And let's look at this one by one. So very first step is technical analysis, because you can have the most persuasive website in the world, but if it doesn't work with the specific website, device and browser combination I'm on, there's no point. So you need to make sure that it works on every single monitor size, every single browser, including Internet Explorer. The easiest way to do is open up your analytics, and you compare your conversion rate within the same browser family per browser version. So Internet Explorer 9, 10, 11, and so on. So let's say that Internet Explorer 11 it converts at 5%, but 10 converts at 2%. Well, that's a huge difference. So maybe your website doesn't display correctly on Internet Explorer 10. It's buggy, something is funky, something is off. And you need to do this for every single browser family. And of course, you look at each device separately. It's amazing how often developers don't test the website on other browsers other than like Chrome, or how often designers design their website on a 27-inch monitor and never check it on a small 13-inch laptop screen. It's crazy, and it happens. And of course, some pages might be super, super slow. So if your pages take 10 plus seconds to load, then you've got a problem. So fix this stuff first. I taught this process to this guy. Is that after 10 minutes, he found a bug in the Safari mobile browser that halved the conversion rate for 32,000 sessions each week. So 10 minutes of investigation and double your conversion rate for a browser segment. I mean, it's great stuff. Second thing you do is you conduct heuristic analysis. So you walk through your website and this is, by the way, best done in a group, so you grab a group of people. You walk through a website, first on desktop, then mobile, tablet, and you assess each page for relevancy. You know, if I land on this page, do I understand that this is for me, and who is it for, and what you can do here? The clarity of the value proposition, like what are they offering here? Do I understand what is being offered and why I should do it and why I should take action? Are they doing enough to increase my motivation to take those actions, and are they reducing friction? What can we do more to increase motivation and reduce friction? So, for instance, this is Square, the old site for Square. Start accepting credit cards today. You know, 2.75% per swipe. We'll mail you a card reader, and the photo here shows us exactly how to use the product. So this is clarity well done. The words are clear. You understand exactly what they offer, and the picture is not so random. You know, coffee mug and a laptop picture. You know, that startups like to use. This actually enhances the clarity of the value proposition. If we would take this picture off, it's like white background or black background, whatever. You know, how many words would we have to use to explain how to use this product? You know, so this is just amazing. Visual hierarchy. Which of these circles is the most important circle? Well, it's the blue one, of course. The blue one. Why? Because it's the biggest. So what is the biggest on your website tells me what is the biggest, the most important thing of your website. You can do this by using color. So like add to cart, but then the same size as add to wish list, but it's the color shows that it's more important, it's more prominent, so it stands out more. You know, color A/B testing. Whenever you see any color A/B test, it's always about which color stands out more. So here, the red button performed better than green. Why? Of course, because you know, just red stands out better in this particular template. And whenever you ask people to take action, you know, there's a button, start free trial, or you know, add to cart, or whatever it is. You have to bear in mind that desired behavior happens when three things converge. There's high motivation, I want to do this. There's peak ability, it's easy to do this. And there's a trigger that compels us to take action, like an email in our inbox or a call to action button on our path. So, for instance, on this particular landing page, they want us to click on this red button. So that's accessibility. Is it easy to click on this button? Yes, it is. If the button is big, it's high in the visual hierarchy, you can't miss it. You click on the button, now you get to this landing page. And suddenly you see, the ability goes down because, you know, you need to scroll down for the form. There's lots of form fields. The form field labels are aligned left, which is a usability problem. They're all mandatory fields, and so on and so forth. But even before we click on this button, we have to ask, do we even want to click on this button? And we probably don't. Because they're doing a crappy job at increasing our motivation here. What about pop-ups for capturing emails? Yes, also very important to improve user motivation, to give you their email. Be the first to hear about new arrivals, says Gap. Well, is that motivation? No, it's not at all. There's no value in being the first. And also, you're not the first. Everybody in their email list gets this email list at the same time, right? Whenever they have a sale. But then in the tiny buddy copy there that, also you get 25% off coupon code. Well, that's money in the pocket. So why don't you just say that? It says would go way up. And ability, two form fields. You could, remove one of the fields and ability would go up. This is a join our newsletter type of page from one of the sites. A client of mine actually, and you can see how terrible it is. And the client is fully aware of it, but they haven't changed it because, they have some CRM software and stuff that's working in the background, and like changing this page is just too big of a headache and development cost for these guys. So this is your advantage. You guys as startups are nimble and fast, and you can change shit quick versus these large behemoths. And this is usually the output of this heuristic analysis. I usually like to do annotated screenshots. So this is done with Google presentations. Just mark down everything I see. So essentially, you're walking through the website page by page, and you're writing down what's wrong with the picture. step number 3, you move into digital analytics. So for conversion optimization purposes, our goals are to figure out where are the leaks, where are people dropping off and then leaving your website. And every page on your website leaks money, but some pages have bigger leaks. So is it the home page, a product page, pricing page, tour page, where? So you need to calculate it, and then you know where to put most of your effort in. Also look at this drop-off numbers across segments, across different devices, traffic sources, and you'll know what works better with an audience. And it's also very important for us to figure out some correlated metrics. What are the users that convert higher, what are they doing differently from people who are not converting as well? So first of all, you need to measure everything, because you'll need it later. So every single thing that a user can do on your website should be recorded. Every click, every scroll, and every interaction with a widget. Google Tag Manager, free, your best friend, it requires some development skills to set up, but it's free and it's great. So it feeds all the data into Google Analytics. Heap Analytics tracks everything in the clickstream, in the DOM, automatically. You just need to define the events once in the back end. I love Heap Analytics. Good stuff. So here's an example. So it's an e-commerce site. So doing qualitative research, we figured out that they're selling allergy relief products. And the question we asked was, when people are shopping for allergy relief products, what is their frame of mind? And our survey showed that people have a specific condition, and they're looking for relief for their specific condition. For instance, they have like dust allergies. So they come here, we built this widget, the drop down on the left, and then we release it. And now, after it had been up for a while, we asked the question, so how many people use this? And if they do use it, what's the impact on their purchasing behavior? In Google Analytics, we created a segment, show me the people who use this feature, 10.8%. And I see that, 10.8% of people use it. And the conversion rate for these people is 13.95%. So it's 4 times higher than site average. Of course, I don't know if this is correlation or causation. The only way I can do that is through testing to prove it. So we made it orange, thinking that it will, help it stand out better, and people will click on it and use it more. But when we ran a test, didn't work. So the question, whenever you run an experiment, you have to ask yourself, how many different ways are there to solve this problem? So for instance, let's say that through your qualitative research, you figure out that most people in your checkout page are feeling uneasy about it. They're feeling that it's not secure, and they don't want to share their credit card details. So the solution is that we have to improve the perception of security on the checkout page. Now, how many ways are there to improve the perception of security on the checkout page? Infinite amount of ways, right? So just because you test one idea that might solve the problem and it fails, doesn't mean that there aren't 1 million better ideas out there. Or even if you move the needle, there's still lots of better ideas probably out there. And we try a version like this and a version like this and get a 5% win over here. And now it looks like this, and so optimization work never ends. Next, you move on to mouse tracking tools. So tools like Hotjar or InspectLed, ClickTail, Decibel Insight. So these show you how far down people scroll, where they click, stuff like that. They also show where people hover with their mouse, but that's completely useless because the idea that basically where people look and where they hover with their mouse has little to no correlation. But how far down they scroll is very useful to know, because then you'll know how much information they've actually consumed before clicking or not clicking anywhere. And that helps you rearrange the information hierarchy on your site. And also where you can see the sharp drop-off points. And typically that's when you change the background color between, when you have like different content blocks, or you have like a massive, like a strong line or a big image. These are called false bottoms. You want to avoid those things. So this helps you. These types of tools help you, and also session replays. If you have massive drop-offs on your checkout page or tool page or pricing page, session replays. You can watch videos of people going through your website, and it's very, very insightful. And of course, form analytics. If you have forms, longer than just sign-up forms where you put in your email and password, but if you have physical form, like you're doing lead qualifications, or you have to ship physical products to another extent, form analytics is a must. You need to know where people are dropping off and which specific form field is causing problems, which specific form field. And then you move on to quality of the surveys. So quality of the surveys tell us why the problems are problems, why are people thinking about it. So when analytics show you the pages where the drop-off is happening, now we can do two kinds of research here. One is that we can put polls on pages where you see lots of drop-off and ask, hey, what's holding you back from signing up or purchasing our product? Or, just ask them one question about that key action you want them to take. You get on average 2 to 4% response rate there. And it's you want to go up to like 200, 250 responses. So that's one. So then basically your buyers, people who surf your website will give you feedback. 2, you survey people who just sign up, who just became users, sign up for a trial, or became paying users, or bought your thing, or whatever it is that you want them to do. Now you survey them, send them an email survey, within a couple of days after their purchase, and ask them about their purchasing experience. Ask them, hey, what's the one thing that almost stopped you from buying? What were the doubts and hesitations that you had before signing up? What were the type of questions you had before signing up? And people will tell you a lot about the friction they experience in the purchasing process. And then you can down the line fix it. There's a Google Docs survey, completely free. Typeform, my favorite, also has a free plan. And then once you process, all these questions need to be open-ended. No multiple choice ever. Always open-ended, because then you get the voice of the customer data. Then you're not assuming that you know what you're going to say, because you don't. So let's say, here, the question that was asked, what's the one thing that nearly stopped you from buying from us? And then there are a bunch of type of answers, and then we read through the answers and we categorize the type of responses to give. Like, oh, this answer was about cost, this was about shipping, this was about delivery times, blah blah blah. And then you write down how many times a certain type of objection came up, and then you know what the issues are. So here is a shopping cart page. Massive drop off on this page. No idea why. We're looking at this page with all kinds of ideas, and then we put a poll on it and ask people, hey, what's holding you back from completing this purchase? And overwhelmingly, they told us high shipping costs, and it's true. The shipping costs were terrible, and so the company learned this and changed their shipping model and made way more money. User testing. You recruit users who represent your target audience, and then you have them use your website. They go through your website, and you want to, depending on what your website is about, but we want to give them one highly specific tool, task. So if you're e-commerce, find a pair of pants in size 34, under $25. For instance, or a broad task. Oh, it's it's your birthday or Christmas is coming up. Find something you would like, and just observe what they're doing. What you often see is there's a video of there's a video of so we can play this video here. So there's somebody's like trying to complete this purchase on an e-commerce store on mobile, and the product's already added to cart, and they get to checkout here, and they need to just complete the purchase. But what they don't know is that they need to register to create an account, but they're not reading, because most people don't read, and they're like clicking on the payment, billing, payment. Nothing is happening. It's an awful experience. And this is minute 6 from minute 13 for 30-minute session. So the guy spends the next 6 minutes trying to check out this horrible experience. And the post user testing survey asked them, hey, what frustrated you about site? Well, nothing. If you had a magic wand, what would you improve? Oh, nothing. Maybe the background color. What did you like about the site? Oh, it was so easy to use. So what people tell you is complete bullshit. Never listen to what they say. Only pay attention to what they actually do. So once you go through this 6-step process, now you know what the actual problems are with your site. And instead of a blog post with 100 random ideas, now you have your own list of 100 very specific problems with your website. That's hugely valuable. Now we need to categorize those ideas. Instrumentation ideas where we're not measuring whether people click on a specific button or maybe we're not doing form analytics. Some are no-brainers. Oh, like maybe a light background, light gray background and a dark gray font color. It's hard to read. Just change it, make it black. And then there are some ideas that we need to test. Because even though if we know what the problem is, doesn't mean we know what the right solution is. That's why we need to test. And sometimes we know we need to test, but then we don't know which solutions to test. It's a complicated issue. Then we need to bring together a bunch of people and just hypothesize what those treatments might be. And sometimes we need to just do more investigation. So usually you want to solve the big problems with obvious solutions first. Whatever your research shows that, oh, this is a big problem and we know how to fix it, fix those first. Second, once you have fixed the obvious problem, now you want to move into persuasive copywriting, online psychology, some creative ideas. And then finally, if nothing seems to move the needle, then now it's time to try radical redesigns, completely different approaches, because maybe you've hit the local maximum here. So typically, all the problems that I discover, I put down in a Google spreadsheet. So like one column is like, what is the issue that we identified? Second is the category of the issue. The background, why is this issue an issue? General idea what to do about it, and a rating from 5 stars to 3 stars. Like 5 stars being, oh my God, if we don't fix it, we're gonna die, and 1 is like a minor usability issue. And those ideas that we put in the under testing or hypothesized bracket, we need to prioritize it. So in this column, the first column here is the test that we want to run, and then we ask a set of questions. Is this are the changes above the fold? Yes, 1 point. Are the changes noticeable within 5 seconds? Yes. Okay, 2 points. Is it adding or removing anything? Yes, 2 points. Is it designed to increase user motivation? Yes, no. And so basically you answer these questions, some about the type of changes, which we are assessing the impact, and the other, the second half of the questions are about the data that you bring. Because if you're having these internal debates and somebody's bringing data and somebody's bringing opinions, the guy with the data should win. So everybody learns to bring data to the table. And then you get a final score of ideas, and then hooray. And then we get to running A/B tests. So the question is, what do we test? Of course, we test solutions to the problems that we identified while doing this conversion research here. Well, should we just change one thing, or should we change many things on our pages? Well, in most cases, you should change. You should make as many changes as are needed. Changing one thing at a time is luxury for super high traffic websites. Startups and small businesses don't have that luxury. So you need to change a whole bunch of things at once, like 20 changes once. As long as you discover 25 problems with your homepage, you change the 25 things and run a test and see what works. Because the bigger the change, the more the bigger the scope of change is, the higher the likelihood of moving the needle. Should you run the same test for all the devices or not? Yes, you should separate desktop and mobile tests always. You can combine tablet with desktop, because tablet is not really a mobile device, because 90% of tablets are Wi-Fi only, so people use them at home while on their couch. Where to test? Well, you want to start testing closer to the money, so checkout page first. and then the cart page, and so on and so forth. And how many variations should we test at once? Should we do A/B testing or ABC or ABCD? Well, it really depends on your traffic. So as many as your traffic can sustain, based on your sample size calculation. If you run a test, when is the test done? When do we stop the test? And then this is what so many companies struggle with, and there are lots of myths. So is it like when you reach 100 conversions per variation? No. Is it when you reach 95% statistical significance? No. Is it whenever the testing tool tells you that you have a winner? Also wrong. So these are all very common misperceptions, and these are all wrong. So what you have to do is that, first of all, you need to make sure that you have enough people as part of your experiment. So the sample size, and you need to calculate the sample size up front. Second, you need to test for multiple business cycles. So at least 2 weeks, ideally 4 weeks, 28 days. Even if you're a very high traffic website, like you can't test for like 1 day or 2 days. Like very high websites can get away with testing for 7 days, like full week, because the people who buy on Monday mornings have a different mindset than people who buy like Friday night and so on. So like that changes. So you want to have representation among that sample that you have. And then finally, if you have enough people, you run the test at least 2 weeks up to 4 weeks. You always test in 1 week cycles. Then finally, you look at either statistical significance, 95% or up, or you can be 99%, depending. This is up to you. Or if you use Bayesian statistics, then probabilities, because there are no p-values. So what you see in testing tools often is that you start the test, and it says, oh, your variation is 0 chance to beat the original. 0. Well, why even bother, right? But no, like keep the test going, and after a while it says, oh, you have 95%. And also, if you look at these numbers, these are tiny numbers, 87 versus 106 conversions. So still bullshit. So how you calculate the needed sample size in advance for an A/B test is you Google A/B test sample size calculator. This is the Evan Miller's calculator, very popular one. So you put in the baseline conversion rate for the page that you are testing, not your site average, but if you run your test on the checkout page and 70% who get there make a purchase, you put 70% there. And then what is the minimum uplift you want to be able to detect? And then relative difference. And it will tell you how many visitors you need per variation. So an A/B test, this in case would be 102,000, right? So it's like, oh, well, I only have 50,000 a month. How can I get? Well, that means that you can't detect the 10% uplift, 10% or less. You need to set the minimum detectable effect to like 20% and see if then you have enough traffic. Which, of course, means that now you run the test for 4 weeks and you don't get the 20% result that you were after. You got like plus 5%. Well, that really actually means that you don't know if it's a winner or not because you don't have enough sample size to know. So, and finally, let's go over the top 10 testing mistakes I see all the damn time. And many I've already explained here. Precious time wasted on stupid tests. So it's tests that are not coming from data. Oh, let's test this. Button colors, font size, fonts. Oh my God. Stop that bullshit. Mistake number 2, you think you know what will work. I've been doing this for a very long time, optimization. And if I have to guess what will work, like we know what the problem is. We're testing 5 ideas. If I have to guess which idea will work, I get it right maybe 60-65% of the time, which is only slightly better than flipping a coin. Not good enough. You don't know. Mistake number 3, you copy other people's tests. Well, other people's tests are other people's solutions to other people's problems. No, you can't copy tests and expect to get the same results. Number 4, your sample size is too low. So always use sample size calculators. And if the calculators tell you that you just don't have enough traffic to run the test within 1 month, then you can't test. You shouldn't run the test more than 28 days. So if you're low traffic, you can't run tests. Well, then you're just not ready for A/B testing. Focus on acquisition and product. Meanwhile, number 5, you run tests on pages with very little traffic. So your overall traffic might be high enough to run A/B tests, but now you decide to test on just one page, maybe your product page or whatever it is. But that particular page doesn't have enough traffic. So meaning you can't run page-specific tests. You should try running some site-wide tests instead. You don't run tests long enough. As I said, the absolute minimum for high traffic websites is 7 days. But if you run the test for 7 days, you don't know if this 7 days is an outlier. Maybe it's a weird period. Maybe it's holidays. Maybe you got some weird PR. Maybe you got an article ranking high in Hacker News, got a massive influx of traffic. But it's not representative of your everyday traffic. So that's why you want to run this up to 4 weeks. So here is a test with optimized they ran. So in the beginning, the blue version is like winning big, hooray. But after 7 days, we see, oh, blue is still winning. And purple, the control, oh, terrible, terrible. This is measuring revenue per visitor. Oh, man, like $3 difference. Huge. Let's stop the test. Blue is a winner. Well, let's run it another week. Okay. 14 days. Oh, orange is the new winner. Orange is like almost $12 $11 revenue per visitor, and the control is like 10. Orange is the new black. Okay, let's run 3 weeks. Yes, orange is great. But like you run it for 28 days and it's like flat. There's no fucking difference. And if you had declared blue is a winner, now let's change all our marketing because now we know the messaging on blue works. You're an idiot. All right, testing mistake number 7. You don't test full weeks at a time. I told you already. Like your conversion rate per day fluctuates all the time. So conversion rate here on Saturday is like 2.4 versus Thursday 4.2%, and the traffic sources vary. So the days are not brothers. Number 8, test data is not sent to third-party analytics. Well, let's say you run a test with VWO or Optimizer, whatever you use. And Optimizer says you have a winner, 10%. Now the question is, did it really win? Did it really win by 10%? Or is it bullshit? Maybe you misconfigured the tools. The revenue, if you track revenue tracking is always off, like not always, often off. How do you know? You don't. That is why you should always send also any test data to your analytics tools like Google Analytics, either through custom dimensions or events. So then, and in Google Analytics, you can you can create custom reports when you look at any metrics you want across these custom dimensions for original variation 1. Mistake number 9, you give up after your first hypothesis for a test fails. Remember the experience with the allergy website. So here we had this landing page for truckers report that we're working on, and we did the full conversion research, and we discovered that hey, half the people, actually most people use mobile phones. Originally was not mobile responsive, so we made it mobile responsive, made it look better, made the copy user centric about benefits, and so on and so forth. And we ran a test, A/B test, and the outcome was no fucking difference. What? It's clearly better, right? But no, yeah. So like, okay, so like, where did we go wrong? So did we, is our data wrong and so on? So we went back to the data, and we were still confident in the data, and we just changed some things. Well, most on mobile phone, we have too much content. Let's cut the content in half. Let's also change the order of form fields and so on and so forth. So we made a bunch more smaller changes here, and now we got an 80% uplift in conversions. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? So had we given up after our first try, I mean, the 80% uplift was just a couple of tweaks away. And mistake number 10, you're not aware of validity threats. So you run a test and it fails or it wins. So what can go wrong? So number 1, history effect. Something in the outside real world affected the test results. Like if your CEO shoots an elephant, your test featured a guy. Your CEO it will affect the rest test results. The biggest thing is instrumentation effect. Does the variation, the treatment that you created work on every single browser version, every single device? Because often you're losing tests, are losing because they're actually the display buggy on a bunch of browsers. So QA is super important. And selection effect. So you run a test, and you don't have enough traffic to test. Oh, let's buy AdWords traffic. So you buy a bunch of AdWords traffic, you get a result. Oh yeah, this test is winning by 10%, and then you stop buying AdWords traffic, and you don't see 10% uplift. Oh, why is that? Well, because what works for your AdWords traffic might not work for the other traffic sources. So that's selection bias. So that can skew your result. Mistake number 11, you're ignoring small gains. Imagine if you can improve your conversion rate 5% per month, 5% per month, over the course of full 12 months, that's 80% uplift. It's compound interest. That's just how math works. Easy as that. So small gains, perfectly fine. And finally, you're not running tests at all times. If you have the traffic to run tests, you should have a test up and running every single day. How do we measure the success of a testing program? Was three things that you should measure: the number of tests run, and actually by number of tests I mean number of variations tested for any given time period. Win rate, so how many of these tests were winning, and what is the average uplift per successful experiment. So to sum up, our conversion optimization process is as follows. We always start with research to figure out what actually matters. We have a list of problems that we identify. We turn those into a list of hypotheses, so what ideas, what might fix those problems. We build treatments, design treatments, write new copy, whatever. Test the treatments, analyze results, and over and over and over again. And that's how it works. If you want to learn, get in-depth knowledge about it, there's ConversionXL Institute where you can develop, become a D-shaped marketer. And I am ready for questions.
First of all, really love the presentation. I also like the open-ended survey. Like, I don't think you can stress that enough, because you can never really be in the heads of your customers. And that user testing document, that video is fascinating. No, there's no problem. So here's like a lot of the companies that you're working with have a lot of traffic, right? And so one of the biggest challenging things for startups is they may not have enough traffic in order to run these types of things. So what do you suggest for startups who don't have enough traffic? I know that there's not like a perfect number of conversions or anything like that, but how should you do this in a lean way?
Right. So you still do your research to identify what the problems are. So you build a list of your 50 or 100 things, or as many problems as you can identify. Then instead of now running an A/B test, you change everything at once. So you implement a solution, a fix to each of the small issues that you identify, but all at once, not one by one, all at once. And all at once because if you change the small things, you will have a small result. So, but your conversion rate is always fluctuating. If you look at your Google Analytics, it's always like within 10-15% going up and down on a weekly basis. So if you change something and the impact is less than 10%, it's hidden in that noise, and you don't know if anything got better or worse. If your results got 7% worse or better, you wouldn't notice. So hence, when you make those changes, and to understand whether those changes made a difference, you need to change everything at once, and then look for an improvement or decline in results that's 20% or more. So, we had 100 leads per week, and now suddenly we have 120 leads per week. Well, it's probably based on what we did. If leads went from 100 a week to 200 a week, well, now we can be, of course, more certain that it's because of the changes.
Okay, so like a 20% usually seems to be the magic number around there.
That's like the minimum threshold to be able to do attribution here. And of course, there's always the questions of which of the 100 changes we made actually made a difference. And that's why, the method is not scientific, but after all, we're in the business of making money, not science. So
okay, so that was my next question: is just kind of from a mentality standpoint, get over the muddiness, and it's okay that it's not scientific and perfect.
Yeah, I mean, once you grow your business and you get to be a new level where you can run tests, then you can be more granular and the exact uplift, how big it was and all that stuff. But until then, that's you do with what you can,
Yep. Well, so to that vein, what are your thoughts on startups maybe skipping around in the process? I don't mean like not doing research first, of course, but like maybe doing user surveys or user testing before doing heuristics or before doing A/B tests. Like, are you cool with that, or you suggest that they definitely follow?
Well, it helps to do the heuristic analysis as the very first step, because because whatever you identify in the heuristic analysis, it's not the truth, it's an observation. Okay. And so now you can come up with better business questions to either validate or invalidate through surveys, user testing. So you will basically you get ideas for what to look for, what to ask. So that's for you is like, oh, maybe this thing is so confusing, I don't know if people are having trouble with it or not. Like, I think it's confusing. Well, then run user tests on it, see if other people are struggling with it or not. If maybe not, maybe it's you, but maybe they are.
Okay, cool. Is there kind of a time limit that you usually say for startups to put on each step of the process, or how long the process should take in general?
So usually, doing user tests on like sites like Try My UI or usertesting.com takes minutes. It's super fast. You get the responses back. The most time consuming heuristic analysis takes like an hour or so, a couple of hours maybe. The thing that is most time consuming is getting the sample size for the qualitative surveys, for polls, for email surveys, getting enough answers back. Because as I said, you want to get ideally like 200 to 50 responses. Okay. Well, 100 is also good, but like if you only get 10, well, 10 is better than none. When you only have 10 responses, you don't know which of these voices is an outlier versus a very common issue. So once you get like 200 responses, you'll know what's a common issue and what's an outlier. Okay, perfect. And then you also mentioned that there's a lot of the the online psychology stuff for copywriting that goes into one of the stages. Do you have any good resources that would be good for people to read, or names to Google or anything like that? Practical exercise. Let's see here. I think like on ConversionXL we have multiple good blog posts on online persuasion, and then there's also this blog called neurosciencemarketing.com. A blog by Roger Dooley that has good stuff, and also there's a Wikipedia page for cognitive biases, and it lists like 100 plus biases that you can kind of take advantage of. Cool. Okay, yeah, that stuff is fascinating. I think that's very like underrated, and people don't really look enough at that, including myself. So, what if everything seems to be inconclusive? When should a startup decide that they need expert help, or when should a startup think like, hey, maybe like we should throw in the towel on this, or like what would be your advice if everything seems to just not work? It's a tough one, man. I've had a failed startup before, so I waited too long to quit. Hiring help for startups is just too costly, because you don't want to hire cheap people who don't know what they're doing, who are probably less smart than you are. So you want to hire people who are like have way more domain expertise in something. I mean, if you're trying small tweaks and nothing is changing completely, I recommend trying radical redesigns, radically different approaches, because you might be hitting that local maximum issue. Yep. And qualitative research doesn't cost anything, meaning that serving your people, calling up your customers if you have them, like it costs your time, but I mean, as a startup, you always have more time than money. Yep. Very true. What well, so like for example, you're very popular and very much in demand. I'm sure that your time can only be spent with a handful of clients, right? So what would you suggest to
to startups who are approached by CRO experts or who are looking for CRO experts, outside of the well-known names, like what are some of the red flags that you would say, for example, if I was a startup and I was looking for somebody to help me with CRO, when should I run the other direction when I hear something, or like, what would you?
Okay, well, ask them about their stopping rules. When are they stopping an A/B test? If they say, "Oh, when we reach 100 conversions or 95% statistical significance, run." So, and if they say, "Oh, you have low traffic, well, it's no problem. We can still run tests." Run, because they want just your money. They don't care about results at all.
Okay.
And also, like, how are you coming up with what to test? So what is your methodology here, and see how thorough they are with the research.
Okay, cool. Those are good. The three good things I'll add to the notes. And lastly, I would just love it if you maybe could tell us a little bit more about ConversionXL and what you're working on, and like who it's right for, so that people in the group can become part of your community.
Yeah, well, on ConversionXL Blog, we're trying very, very hard to put out the best possible optimization content there is. So really, on any optimization question you have, we have the best article on it on how to do. I'm not lying, even though, like,
no, I agree.
I'm biased clearly, but I mean that's the standard we aim. Like, there's nothing better out there. So that's one. Two, we run ConversionXL Institute, where anybody can teach themselves. It's a self-study training program, optimization skills.
Okay.
So that's a way to go if hiring agents is expensive. Like, our fees start from $10,000 a month, which is like, startups have better things to do with that kind of money. But teaching yourself the skills is, investment. Even if your startup doesn't work out, your skills are there forever. And with our agency, we are working with like 10 million and up companies, mid-market to enterprise level of companies with our agency. But yeah, ConversionXL, free advice on the blog.
That's awesome. Can anybody join your Facebook group?
Yeah, anybody, man.
Okay, perfect. I'll put the link in there too. That's very active. That's awesome. It's a big help. This is wonderful. Again, thank you so much for the time. And I'm gonna just quit recording and I'll say goodbye to you. Okay.